So what was it you said right before I hit record?
I was asking if I look good now.
Mm-hmm. Because?
Because I really need to start hooking up from this podcast.
I can't not laugh.
I'm just saying, it occurred to me recently, why am I even doing this?
Anyway.
Obviously, that's an old joke. It never isn't funny.
It never gets old.
I know, it really doesn't.
You know, some of your jokes, I laugh at them now, not because they're funny anymore, but because I think it's funny that you keep using them.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, yeah. Every time you tell me you're I'm going to bed, and you're like, all right, well, I'm gonna go out. I'll be in around 3 or 4.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just funny every time.
Or the shower joke.
What's that?
Well,
yeah.
Anytime you mention...
I say I'm going to take a shower, and we don't even need... and he's always like, yeah, you should. Every single time. He doesn't even have to say it anymore. We just have to look at each other at this point.
Yeah, I'll be like, yeah, good idea. I didn't want to say anything, but... no, you always smell great.
Thank you. All right, so I just got back from vacation, and I brought this T-shirt with me.
Very cool T-shirt.
It's a blue T-shirt, and it has a big wave on it. And the wave is drawn by an artist on the island where Kathy and Sandy live, where I just went to visit.
I have one of their shirts.
You do? The one with the synthesizer.
Yeah.
Slow Loris.
Yeah, we should get more of those shirts. Yeah. They're so cool.
I'm sure they're available online.
Yeah.
Anyway, I bought this at the general store on the island.
The general store is so cool. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So they live on an island you can get to only by ferry or if you have a boat. It's a short ferry. It's like 7 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
But maybe 700 or 800 people live there full time. It's gorgeous. So gorgeous. So green. Just, oh my gosh.
Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
Classic.
But the only business on the island, well, the only non-home-based business on the island, besides a resort, there's a resort on the north side.
Oh, there is?
Yeah, it's
I didn't know.
Small resort.
Yeah.
Actually, the guy who owns the resort owns the general store.
Oh.
But anyway, to finish my sentence, it is the only non-home-based business on the island. So it's a general store. They have baked goods and canned goods and, emergency food basics. But they also have musicians there. They have musicians indoors. When we went to go get a pizza there on Friday, we listened to them for a bit. And they have a stage outside as well.
Yeah.
That we've seen some music.
So basically the island is a small enough place that the general store becomes probably like it was in, tiny towns years ago. It becomes a real social gathering place. I mean, people are like having drinks and...
Yeah, they have beer there and they have a bar and they have the best pizza I have ever eaten. I didn't even tell you. Oh my gosh. We went there on Friday night to get pizza and beer and listen to some music. And it's a thin crust pizza and there's like herbs in it. And I'm not kidding. It is the best pizza I've ever eaten. We got 2 different kinds. One of them was mushroom and onion and cheese. And the other one was just like a cheese pizza. It was just a cheese pizza. And it was like the best pizza I've ever had.
Well, it's such a fertile place. I mean, for generally being kind of cool and cloudy, I mean, if nothing, the produce there is insane.
Yes.
The berries,
Yeah.
I remember being there a couple of years ago and we'd go on walks and there's just more berries. You couldn't pick all those berries.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, when you go, I was too early in the season this time. But
a little later
in August. Yeah, I went for a run one time and I just kept stopping and just like grabbing handfuls of blackberries off the tree, off the bushes and just eating them. And I probably ate 2 or 3 pints of blackberries right out, like warm blackberries right off the tree.
And they're nobody's blackberries. They're just
on the road.
They're weeds in the ditch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such a paradise.
Oh, I was so glad you got to spend time there. That was,
But so this is a music podcast, so I'll talk about a couple of music things from the trip. So, I mentioned we went to the general store to get pizza and beer and listen to some music, and I didn't tell you about the duo that was playing there. It was a piano player playing on an upright that they have there, and a percussionist / horn player.
Wow.
He played saxophone, probably a tenor sax, and flute. And he was drumming on a conga, but he made it sound like all kinds of different things. He was using brushes on it. He was using all kinds of different things on it. Plus, each of his feet were doing something else as well. It took a while to figure out what was going on. I was trying to match up the sounds with the movements, but his right heel, not his right toe, but his right heel was hitting the conga in a way that sounded like a kick drum underneath. Like it was lifted. So he had something underneath it. And then his left foot, which would normally be the hi-hat foot, was doing shaker. I don't know where the shaker was. I didn't see it. But I mean, it took a while to match up because I couldn't see a pedal hitting anything, but I heard a kick drum.
Right.
And I since his toe wasn't moving and it was only his heel, I didn't catch it a lot of the times. It took a while to figure that out. And so he was just switching around doing. They were so good.
Wow.
It was a great duo.
That is one of the things about the Pacific Northwest. We went to a farmer's market. One of the times I was out with you, we went to a farmer's market and they just had kind of bands at the farmer's market.
Yeah.
And they're super talented. I mean, it's a place that's so nice to live that it just draws great musicians.
We did go to the farmer's market on Saturday, and there was a great band playing there. There was it was a very bluegrassy, like there was a slide guitar and there's an upright bass, a fiddle player, guitar player, lots of vocal harmonies.
Wow.
They were really good.
Cool.
They were really good. And then there was a band that wasn't so great that I told you about, that I texted you because my head was breaking. So there was a community marching band that I think had been pulled together just for this one thing.
Right.
It wasn't exactly a marching band there was a girl with a bass drum hitting left, boom, boom, on left, right. And there was a snare player. And there were 3 or 4 horn players and a couple of other people. So it wasn't like a big band. They were all wearing animal costumes.
That's fun.
I think it was like a parade, a community parade. But the thing that was breaking my brain is that the girl playing the bass drum kept drifting from 1-3 to 2-4, kind of back and forth. So she'd be, so for those who don't know what I mean when I say 1, 3, 2, 4. So like when we count in 4, it's usually like boom, cha, boom, cha, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm stomping my foot on the 1. That's usually the deeper sound, boom, cut, boom, cut. Well, she was going like, let's say, boom, cut, boom, 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 and she'd end up on the boom,
boom, that, boom, that. Boom.
Then she was on like, if you're going cat, get the boom and the cat were on the same time, and like I could just tell the snare player was just trying to keep it straight. He was just trying to keep going for everybody else, and then she would drift back onto the 1, and I was just like, oh.
Boy, that is. I've had a few nightmare gigs with drummers. None recently at all, but there have been gigs. Maybe you can't even blame the person, but there was a Petty Nicks gig years ago, 5 years ago, and it was someone that was filling in with like no rehearsal and it was just some last minute. I think it was maybe at the old venue place. It was just
okay, yeah,
and.
Oh, yeah, I remember that gig.
There were times when I was just turning down the guitar volume and like, I'll wait.
Until we know where we are.
Until we know where we are.
Oh, man.
Although, speaking of nightmare gigs, I had told you. So I've talked about it on the podcast. I sometimes play with a dueling pianos act, which normally is just 2 piano players, and they play and sing, and they kind of go back and forth leading songs. That's the dueling part. They don't actually fight.
That would make a different show.
That would make a totally different show. It would be a great show. Yeah, exactly. 2 guys, I guess, kicking at each other while they're playing piano?
Yelling the lyrics at each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Sweet Caroline! Who can sing bump, bump, bump louder?
We actually did one of those gigs without doing Sweet Caroline. It was pretty awesome.
No way.
We didn't wind up doing Sweet Caroline. It's amazing. We almost always do. Which, gosh, if you would have told younger me that I would ever learn how to play Sweet Caroline, I'd be like, no, I'm not going to do that. But I know all of Sweet Caroline. I know how the guitar goes on the record. Anyway, we were playing in one of the northern suburbs, but not that far away, and call time was 6:15. That gig they throw and go. There's not a lot of sound checks, so we were supposed to be there at 6:15. Downbeat, for those in the business, was 6:30, meaning music starts at 6:30.
Really? The call time was 15 minutes?
15 minutes. That's usually what they do. They just throw it up, I mean, John Sherman gets there early and sets the PA up and whatever, but the other musicians. So, as I was saying, normally dueling pianos, it's 2 piano players. When they do these mobile gigs, corporate gigs, weddings, this was a corporate something party, they had a drummer and then a lead instrument. Might be a saxophone, or it might be a guitar player, or whatever, just to kind of flesh out the sound a little bit. And it's super fun because we don't know, much like the call time, there's no pressure. We don't know what we're going to play. You're probably going to play Sweet Caroline, but in general, you don't know what you're going to play because it's all requests. People they have these little sheets and people write down, and we just do songs, and you do your best doing it. And those guys are amazing. Sometimes they're reading off their phones, playing with one hand and reading off their phone because they don't know that song, and they're just hacking through it. But it's fun. It's not like, it's fun for the audience too. It's not really a stump the band thing, but it's fun. But anyway, so I was supposed to be there at 6:15. I left the studio in Denver at 5:00.
And that would normally be a half-hour drive.
It would be a 20-minute drive home, and then a half-hour drive from home to there. So I had plenty of time to get home and get there. Unfortunately, the worst traffic I've ever seen. We work, what is it, a mile from the interstate? Mile and a half from the interstate?
Yeah.
It took over 45 minutes to get from our studio just to the interstate exit. It was an absolute nightmare. Like, you need to turn left to get on a road that goes to the interstate, but things were moving so slowly that traffic the other way would like clog up the road, and then every lights changing like normal, every light, maybe one car would get through. Sometimes a car couldn't get through because there's no room on the road.
Yeah.
45 minutes or an hour of that, and I was absolutely losing my mind. Bailed on coming home because that was long gone. Anyway, changing in the car because we have to be like kind of dressed up formal for these things, and I was leaving the studio just in my normal clothes, so I'm literally going up Sheridan. Once I got out of that terrible traffic, I'm like going up Sheridan at stoplights, changing my entire clothes, shoes, pants. I had no pants on for an entire light because I got the pants off at one light and couldn't get the pants back on, the next pair of pants on, so I had to drive to the next light and then put on the dress pants. It was that level of rushed.
Oh my God.
It wound up taking me an hour and 45 minutes to do what should have been, even in traffic, a 30-minute drive. It was just, I don't know if it was related to the basketball game or who knows what it was. We are downtown. Maybe that had something to do with it. Either way, hour and 45 minutes, I'm changing in the car. I run up on stage. I'm 15 minutes late because also I get to the hotel. Maybe I'm going to make it on time. There's like 10 cop cars. They have the road blocked. And then so I'm driving in circles trying to find the place. Finally find the place. Jump out of the car. Run on stage. Plug in really fast and start playing. I'm like 15 minutes late. There's nothing to do at that point. Just start playing along.
Yeah.
And we did about an hour and a half, and then that was pretty much it for the night. But, it ended early, so no Sweet Caroline. We got to do, some of the old classics.
What are some of the songs that you did play?
Some of the cool ones we did because just everybody was in a mood and not a bad mood, like in a just having fun mood. And we did a great version of Janis Joplin's Freedom's Just Another Word for Nothing Left to Lose.
Bobby McGee.
Bobby McGee. We did a pretty rockin' version of that with the whole double time thing at the end and rockin'. And Sherman was pulling out some deep cut, like Lido, like some Bob... Lido, whoa, oh, oh, oh. Like some
cool.
Steely Dan-ish type stuff and like some deep cuts. We were doing some deep cuts.
Right, because you didn't really have any requests, right?
We had some, but it was interesting. It was one of those nights too where the requests were just like, what are you, I can't even think of a personal, yeah. Although that was one of my favorites was someone, and I saw this on the paper. I'm not making this up. I saw it on the paper. Someone requested "Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me" by, I think it's Elton John. "Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me." But they wanted it dedicated to Donald Trump. And the dedicated to Donald Trump was underlined several times. So only play it if you're dedicating it. Oh my
gosh, though.
We didn't do that. I mean, we probably wouldn't have done that song anyway because it's a party and that's not like a party song. Like sometimes people will request songs where you're like, that is a great song, but people are trying to dance and have fun.
Yeah.
And that's a super bummer song. And it's cool you want to hear that, but like that's just not what's happening here. And "Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me" is sort of a, like people are dancing. They don't want to hear that slow. Don't let the sun,
Yeah.
But that was a pretty hilarious request thing. In 8-year-old handwriting. Yeah, so that was my nightmare gig. It was, we took a break and the event organizers were offering us drinks and I was like, I am maybe going to throw up from nerves. Like just the stress of just watching the clock tick and I'm getting later and later later and later. And now I'm definitely going to be late. And now I'm going to be even later. And I could not. I was like, I just had metal taste in my mouth or something. I was just like, I was just dying.
Oh my gosh.
I don't think I felt okay for 24 hours. It was just like, and there's just nothing to do. But it was one of those where I couldn't relax because there was nothing to do. It just kept getting worse. Because like, oh no, oh no, oh no. And you know how I can
you can
wind myself up.
You can get real tense.
Yeah, gosh. But you know what? Sometimes you have nightmare gigs, and we were talking about it. We've had a few.
I don't think I've had that many, but...
well, we did an episode on nightmare gigs, but we've also had those stress gigs where it is like, oh no, oh no, oh no. Keyboard.
Yeah. Yeah, oh no. So this is back in Urban Dance Theory days, and we had a gig on the south side of Denver somewhere, maybe...
We had a gig in Colorado Springs.
Was that in Colorado Springs?
It was in Colorado Springs.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so we were carpooling.
Yeah.
And so I came to your place in Cap Hill to pick you up, and we had to like unload stuff from my car and like to get your stuff in because I had a keyboard without a case at the time.
Right. Because you played keys on quarter of this thing.
Yeah. And so we took my keyboard out and put it on the grass and then loaded your stuff up and left my keyboard there.
Just drove off and left it.
In the grass in Cap Hill. So we drove all the way to the gig and unloaded the car, and I was like, "Where's my keyboard?"
Yeah.
And then I knew instantly. One
of those things where you know instantly. You're like, "Oh no."
This can't have been in Colorado Springs because I drove back to your place immediately.
Wow, was it?
I'm pretty sure I drove back, and because I remember driving to it and thinking, "There's no way that keyboard is still going to be there," and lo and behold, it was not still there.
In Capitol Hill, there's no way.
No way. It was gone in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Or sooner.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I had enough time to drive back to your place and look for it and drive to Guitar Center and buy a new one.
And buy a whole new keyboard.
The exact same keyboard. I just called on my way and I was like, "Get it ready for me. Do you have this exact keyboard? I want it now. I'm coming by." And I think I made it. I mean, I wasn't late to the gig. I think I might have showed up like 10 minutes before we went on.
Yeah.
We must have really planned out. I mean, we were running sound for all those gigs.
Right.
So we were getting there 2 or 3 hours beforehand.
Yeah, so maybe there even was time to get... Because I remember you were coming in hot on that gig, too. Like, barely making it.
Yeah, and then the thing was I didn't have all my patches set. So I just, I did what I could to find a synth patch that would be usable for the night and a piano patch. Just easy, but I didn't have all the sound set up. Yeah,
because you had that thing all tricked out and labeled and...
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Had all my cheat sheets, like...
This song
taped
to
the keyboard. That was so... Yeah. That was funny. You had one where you were running sound a few years ago.
The last time I officially ran sound, in fact, because I decided...
You're never going to do it again after this?
Yeah. It was a different situation, but it was a... you get there at the agreed upon time. I was not late to this one. I was right there when I should have been, and it was the venue's equipment. And unbeknownst to me, everything was hooked up wrong. Like, just this is not going to work right. So it becomes a mad scramble to get stuff adjusted so that it can even sort of work right before the show actually starts. I guess this happened the other week at another gig that the venue's equipment was also problematic. But this was even worse. It was just like, there's a thing called gain structure, which is just basically how all the knobs are set. And if you set it right, stuff is unlikely to feedback. If you set it wrong, it is just going to feedback constantly. And I don't know why. We laugh about it all the time. That's the thing in movies or TV.
Yeah.
Where when someone's trying to give a speech and they're like, and then woo, Michael feedback to like show that the person is not doing well speaking.
Right.
Or, and
the mic feedback is always the key that like somebody's nervous or
inexperienced. Which is not how microphone feedback works. It is not related to your emotions at all. It doesn't know about your feelings. Yeah, but it's so funny that they always do that in shows. But as a result, people are insanely sensitive to feedback. Like everyone in the room flips out and like there's a wince of feedback and the entire room just always goes, oh, and makes this huge noise. Well, not only was it set up totally wrong so that it would just feedback constantly, and I got that sort of under control, it was very inexperienced performers who kept doing all of the things that would make microphones feedback. That's grabbing them and cupping them. If you do the wrapper thing where you put your whole hand over the thing, if you really close that thing off, it's going to feedback on you. Which, a little bit of trivia, that originally started because people were lip syncing on TV, and if you rapped like this with the whole thing, people couldn't see your mouth and they didn't have any chance to see if you were lip syncing. And now it's the cool thing to do. So we had that happening. We had people pointing microphones at the monitors, which you can't do because feedback means the sound is feeding back through the sound system. And if you point a microphone directly at a speaker, it is going to feed back. That's why you always see singers behind speakers. Singer with a microphone, out in front is the speaker. They were several times needed to go play an instrument, or they were done singing for whatever reason, and they would just lean down and put the microphone on the floor.
In front of the speaker?
Right by the speaker. So the entire night, I think it was like 6 hours without a break.
Oh my gosh.
I am just like trying to hit mutes and stuff to just stop. And then sometimes you don't catch it and the entire room would go, oh my God,
And it's all your fault.
And it's all my fault. And everybody's looking at me. And it was like seriously 6 hours without a break. And it was a similar feeling of just nerves just through just unbelievably tense. And just there's nothing you can do at that point. If people are literally putting microphones down on top of the monitor and it's just like, it's gonna go off, It's like, what do you... Yeah, and that was the last time I at least was paid for doing sound.
Right, I have employed you for no pay to do sound.
Yes, I have done that. Yeah, I have done that.
You ran sound at the last student showcase.
Yeah, and in low pressure situations, I mean, those are so easy because you got a couple channels, you know, and the sound system at that place is pretty well dialed. And I did a few EQ things and it was just going to behave, you couldn't have made that thing feedback. Yeah, but that was the last one where I was like, sure, I'll go into an unknown room and see how well I do. I was like, nope, not doing that anymore. Like if I know it's at the Muse or it's our system or something like that, it's like, sure, I'll do a little bit. But like, it's my job to run sound. I'm like, I'm not doing that again.
Maybe that explains why sound guys are in a bad mood a lot of the time.
It is fair that it goes both ways. I will also say it's fair that a lot of sound guys, not most sound guys are cool. Some sound guys are just jerks, and I have run sound, I don't know how many nights in my life, plenty, and I never felt the need to get snippy and complainy. Because, it's one of two things. Either you can be cool and be like, hey guys, here's what I need, can we just do this? Or it's not going to happen no matter what you say. So you just do what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And
what's not going to happen? What do you mean?
Oh, like if they're just the kind of people who are going to be pointing microphones at monitors, they're not going to stop doing that.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't, no amount of being a jerk and being snippy with them is going to change.
Yeah.
They're doing that. It's just kind of like, you've just got to go, okay, well, this is just terrible. Let me just try to do what I can. And,
yeah,
you know, I don't know. But yeah, to be fair, sound guys do put up with stuff sometimes. They really, really do, you know?
Yeah. I mean, everything from performers who don't understand what's going on,
right,
or how to behave and how to do a sound check, to performers who think they know way more than they actually do.
Right.
Or maybe they really do know what's going on. Maybe they are also a sound guy, or sound woman. But, you know, the sound engineer is the one in charge of the sound in this particular venue, and like being told, I think you need to lower about 1,000 hertz or so, and like getting, or take the reverb off that. I think it'll sound better, or like
which you've gotten really good at. Like, you know, a lot of times when, like, you'll say that's boxy, and you know where boxy is in the frequency spectrum,
more or less. But I'm not.
More or less.
First of all, I'm not going to say it because I don't know exactly where it is, and second, I want them to use their expertise. I want to be like, I'm the singer, I'm hearing this, you fix it the best way you know
how. And that's what I mean. I do the same thing.
Right, and I know I can see it because you could pinpoint the exact frequency.
Right.
You know, without a doubt.
I'll be like, yeah. I mean, within a reasonable margin of error, but I'll be like, that's 400. You know, and, you know, if you pull that. But I also don't know. It's your system. You've worked the room.
Yeah.
And it's your job right now. I don't want to jump in.
Yeah.
I did with someone, one of our last gigs where I was, you know, they were kind of struggling, and I was like, 250. Like, I don't want to tell you what to do, but like, it's 250. Maybe it's not exactly 250, but that will solve the problem.
Yeah.
But I made sure no one else heard me say it to them. Just to, like,
you're so good at that. I mean, it's probably not a unique skill, but it's like, I don't have perfect pitch, so it impresses me when I hear people have perfect pitch.
Right.
I don't have the ability to pinpoint a frequency like you do, so it impresses me. I remember when you were not yet in Urban Dance Theory and you came to see one of our shows.
Oh, right.
You were going to join, but it was somebody else's last show. And we were getting some feedback at Baker Street Pub.
Right.
And during a break, you walked over and you're like, you should just turn down, and you like said what the frequency, I don't know what the frequency was, but you said like this frequency, and we did, and I was like, oh my gosh, how did you know that?
I mean,
you're amazing.
It's just experience. And it's not like, dude, if you spend any time around a guy like John Kurzweg, you'll be like, I apparently know nothing. It's like that guy will be like, oh, it's exactly this, or there's a little too much this, and you're like, oh, wow, that is 100% better, and you did. Like, and you knew exactly what to do. Anyway, yeah, it's just experience. I mean, that's so much. I was just having that discussion today, and it's maybe even a great takeaway of, like, that is how you learn to do any of this, is just doing it, you know? And one of the ways you learn to know where frequencies are and stuff is having sound gigs where you were running your own sound early on, or you've just got to get out there and do stuff, and sometimes it's going to go great and sometimes it's not going to go great, but that's really how you learn, is just trying it. It's like we were talking about songwriting at the time earlier today, and talking about, like, that's, I mean, part of how you learn to write good songs is by writing bad songs. You know, I know I've said this a million times, but I just feel like it's such an important thing to say. I mean, and everybody's got bad songs in them. And so the best way to get to your good songs is just start writing songs and get some of those bad ones out of the way.
Right.
You know, and maybe you won't realize it's a bad song for a year, and then you'll go, oh, I hear now why that's not such a great song. And, you know, but that's the only way you get to the good ones.
Yeah.
Or perhaps more painfully, you get lucky one of your first times you write a song, and then you have to wade through it. You go, oh, I got this figured out. That's a great song.
I'm a great songwriter.
And then that second good one takes a long time. Anyway, gosh, any takeaways for you this week? Well, you spent a lot of time. Tell me about this. You spent a lot of time even though you didn't have a bass guitar with you, still learning 3 bass songs a day.
Yes, I did. I kept up with it. I learned 21 songs in 7 days.
Yep.
Learning, meaning listening carefully and charting them. I did have my computer with me, so I had Logic Pro.
And you could make notes on piano.
Yeah, so I can like see a keyboard. I can like use my typing keyboard as a piano keyboard. So that's how I reference the notes. So I made charts and listened, and so now I have to go back and actually try to play these songs.
Right.
And see whether my chart's accurate and see.
So you were just charting out what the chords, the harmonic structure of the song,
and the timing,
and the timing.
Yeah, which for a lot of the pop and rock stuff is enough.
Yeah, you've heard it.
If I can play it on keys, I can play it on bass. Like it's just not hard. A lot of it, and yes, I know a lot of these songs already. So the real test is just. I think the real test actually is not so much can I play what I wrote, but like, do I remember enough? Like, did I notate enough about, in particular, the groove? Enough
detail in the chart. Yeah, the rhythmic.
The rhythmic
like, what's the rhythm?
Yeah, because I know how the song feels from a vocalist perspective easily. I don't always, and especially, and even the drum perspective. Like, that's pretty obvious. Like, for example, Taylor Swift's Shake It Off.
Yeah.
Yeah. But does the bass do that?
Right.
No,
it doesn't.
The bass goes ba-da-da-da. No, it does 5. It does ba-da-da-da-da, and then breaks for the rest of the bar. And I need I don't need a better way to notate it. Basically, I need to get all these charts into Foursquare on my iPad so that I can...
You can add that level of detail.
Because I can't... I'm doing them all by typing because I like typing and I like digital, but I can't make a lot of notes. Like handwritten notes, so I need to go back and add some of that.
That's what's funny about doing the Howl gigs is... And we did do Shake It Off at that Howl gig. We almost always do Shake It Off. That's a big one. And... I will, a lot of times on guitar, I will sort of play the bass part. I'll just kind of palm mute it and make it thumpy and just sort of do, at least rhythmically with the basses, even though I'm not in the same octave. I'll just add that level of detail.
Yeah.
Because they're just kind of playing piano, you know. Not just kind of playing piano, they're dynamite piano players. I don't want to it's insane what they do. And they've started playing, they've added keyboards, so a lot of times left hand they are playing bass. But when they're not, I'll just fill in rhythmically. And we played Shake It Off, and I did get back to, that's the rhythm of what the bass is doing on that, but it took me about half the song to sort of start remembering and then play one thing and go, wait, that's not quite right. And then I had to try 2 or 3 things and then I finally halfway through I fell into, that's what the, part does, whereas that's what your chart would help you do is be like, that's what it is, and then from note 1 you're in at the right rhythm.
Yeah.
Instead of like halfway through the song I'll get it sorted.
Yeah, I want to try to have a clue before I start. It makes me feel better too. If I can look at the song and see my notes and be like, that's how it goes, rather than like, here we go. I hope I figured it out while I'm on the fly.
Let's see what happens.
But Nate's been so helpful. Nate Marsh, my bass teacher, he gave me what he called a song vegetable.
What is a song vegetable?
A song that's nutritious for you to learn. Yeah. So he sent me Love Fool by the Cardigans.
Yeah.
So there's a major to minor movement back and forth in that song. There's the verse doesn't go a full set, like it misses like the last beat or so of right when it goes to the pre-chorus, and then there's the challenge of how exactly to notate the bass, which goes bum 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 bum. So like, do you write all of those notes out? Do you write, because like that the middle note is a passing note. It's not a chord movement for the song.
Right.
So so I did a chart, and then he shared his chart, and it's been really helpful to just see how he notates things and gives me ideas for how I want to do it, how I'm adapting it, and I'm noticing my charts are in general getting more concise and shorter, which is great.
You're probably just getting better at writing. I mean, I know that was one of my challenges early on when I started being a chart guy, which I was never a chart guy.
Yeah.
Until the last 10 years or so. And at first you're just putting way too much in there, or maybe it isn't too much, but you just don't know a concise way to trigger all those things. So you're like, I got to write out all of this because
there's more in my head now. I mean, I started with writing more concise charts with Cody's stuff. Mm-hmm. And then I was finding that, like, because of nerves, I needed something I could just follow top to bottom.
Right.
I needed to not be like, oh, this is the second chorus, but it's a little different this way. Or just chorus again. I needed to literally read top to bottom, or else just in the movement of my eyes going back to here, I'd be like, what's up? Yeah. But now I'm much more calm on stage, and I'm getting lots of experience. I mean, I've charted over 20 songs a week for the past month, so I'm getting close to 100.
Close to 100, that's what I was thinking, yeah.
Yeah. And
what is your end goal? 300? Or is there even a number?
There's not a number. I mean, I want to learn all of the songs that Nate says are the most frequently played ones, first of all. And I want to learn all of Jacob Larson's songs.
Yeah.
And from there, probably just, well, at that point, I might start circling back and learning stuff better.
Right. At some point, yeah, right. Because having 1,000 songs charted may not help you very much, because you're going to be like, well, it's been a long time since I've thought of this song or looked at this chart. It might be better to circle back.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So I want to get, like, the most frequently used wedding and corporate songs down as quickly as possible, because I did get a gig offer, a Diamond Empire gig offer this week.
First one.
I did not land it because I wasn't fast enough on the trigger, but that's okay. But so I want to get the first bunch down, like, just well enough. Like, if this gets called, I can at least make my way through it.
Right.
And then once I've got, I guess it's maybe 300 or so at that level, then I'll circle back and raise the bar on all of those a little bit. Because those are, like, it's the 80-20 rule, It's going to be most important to have those 300 or 400 songs down well than it is to have 5,000 songs in my repertoire. Well, or even 1,000. Yeah. Right. That's not. I'll learn those as they come.
Yeah.
As people request them, or they're on the set list.
Yeah. Well, you are, I think, certainly inspiring some people, doing your hard work that you always do.
I'm not trying to be inspirational or show offy. I'm trying to show the world that I'm employable.
I think that's what it is. I think you're also, in posting about that, I think you're doing a really good job of using social media for one of the things that it's good at, which is keeping yourself accountable. If you're putting it out there and people are seeing you put it out there, there's a little bit of keeping you accountable. Yeah. It's sort of like telling somebody, I have this goal of working out or doing this or that. That's a little bit like, if I'm the only one who knows, then I can skip it. And, it's not much, but it's a little something.
Yeah, it is.
Anyway, what this week we're, of course, sponsored by Performance High
Voice and Music Studio.
And gosh, what else? How about the concept of air travel? Because I'm glad you're home.
The concept of air travel.
The concept of air travel. We're sponsored today by the Wright brothers. And their idea that maybe someone could get from Seattle to Denver in a day, which I think is where they started. I think that was the drawing.
Oh, yeah? That's their first flight?
Specifically Seattle to Denver. It's worked out well for me, at least.
All right. I guess that's it for now.
Cool. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you again next week.
All right. See ya. Bye.